So welcome to the Glenn Gould Foundation's Promise of Music Forum. Before we begin, I'd like to take just a minute to speak about Glenn Gould and to also introduce you to the Glenn Gould Foundation. Yesterday, philosopher Joshua Cohen of Apple University in California led an insightful session on Glenn Gould and the human qualities that foster remarkable creativity. It was a fascinating look at the calculated decisions Gould made in his reinterpretation of Bach's Goldberg variations in order to deliver the best possible listening experience for his audience. Glenn Gould transformed the way music was recorded and shared, experimenting with new technologies to create the best sound possible. At the time that he was performing in the 1950s, there was no such thing as the internet, so he used radio and television to reach the largest possible audience. The foundation that bears his name exists to amplify awareness of Glenn's spirit and legacy by celebrating innovation and excellence, promoting creativity, encouraging cultural diplomacy, and introducing programs that demonstrate the power of music and the arts to transform lives. The Promise of Music is one of these programs, a 5-day-long international festival which showcases some of the world's most inspiring examples of how music and music education programs can not only develop some of the world's most talented future musicians, but have the transformational power to inspire young people to achieve beyond what they thought was possible. This next session, Building Bridges to a Better Future, ties directly into the social impact of the promise of music. When young people grow up facing adversity, feelings of hopelessness, disengagement, and hostility can become internalized responses to their outward circumstances. Through self-destructive or even criminal behavior, too often young lives can be wasted or tragically cut short. Against such overwhelming, soul-destroying odds, how can something like music make a difference? And yet, as our speakers have witnessed firsthand, music can inspire and catalyze an astonishing transformation. It begins by showing young people that they're not alone. It affirms their potential to learn, to create, to achieve. And it nourishes an environment for personal growth, self-discovery, and contributing to something greater than themselves. It is now my honor to introduce to you the host and moderator for this session on Building Bridges to a Better Future. Dr. Richard Marcella is the Executive Director of Community Music Schools of Toronto, a school that provides free after-school music lessons to over 700 students in the Regent Park and Jane and Finch areas. Richard completed a PhD in music education at the University of Toronto in 2021 and has worked at the community level as founder and programmer of the Brampton Indie Arts Festival and as director of the Parade of Noises, also in Brampton, an outdoor annual event for young students who use recycled materials to make and perform on homemade instruments. Please welcome Dr. Richard Marcella and an international panel of truly remarkable individuals from Cameroon, Kenya, Israel, and Sweden, Elizabeth Jirogi, Steve Happy, Micah Hendler, Dondo Mali, and Ron Davis Alvarez. Thank you.
Welcome, yeah, we are. We're on the bake-off. We're on the bake-off. Good afternoon, everybody. And it's nice to see you all. We're going to be chatting here for a little bit. Yeah, good. It's all coming together. What a panel. Just on the in the backstage front, if you could put the clock up here, I was using that like religiously yesterday, so that would be a huge help to me if you could. There it is. Because we only have an hour now. And we're going to make the most of it. This is Building Bridges to a Better Future, and this is our roundtable. What a panel. maybe I'll start it out just by asking the question, what does that mean to you, building bridges to a better future in the context of music education? We have as Claire mentioned, an international panel here. Not every one of you necessarily needs to answer this question. Otherwise, I'll only get through 3 questions on my, but I think I'll just improvise here. Dandu, why don't you start us off?
Thank you so much. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be on this panel and just to have incredible people here with me today and with you, just to forge forward what the intertwining education, music, transformation, all of it, and how in Muli Children's Family, maybe I'll just give a little background of Muli Children's Family, then you will understand where I'm speaking from. I work with Muli Children's Family. Muli Children's Family is an organization that takes care of orphaned children, abandoned children, neglected children, children who are in conflict with the law, children who have been forced into labor, child prostitutes, and child mothers, kids and young people who have nowhere to call home. Now, this organization began 35 years ago by a man who is called Charles Muli. Charles Muli, or Dr. Muli, was abandoned when he was 6 years old by his own parents. First of all, he comes from a very humble background. His family, the father and the mother, they were very poor. And the father was abusive, alcoholic, and he would beat them up, and, you know, it was really terrible. And one day, this young man, or young boy, 6 years old, he wakes up, he finds that there is no one in the house. He's been left, he's been abandoned by his parents. His other siblings are gone. So he lived a very difficult life from being a beggar, really, from being a beggar all the way until he became an established businessman and entrepreneur, and one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in Kenya at the time. And it's at that time that God told him, okay, fine, I've made you wealthy. You were once a street child. So all that you've acquired, all that you have, I want you to take it back and start taking care of these abandoned children who are just like you. So that is how Muli Children's Family began. So it began in the terms of bringing children to transform them. But then how does music come in? How does art come in? In MCF, all the children who have come to MCF, right now we have had over 35,000 who have graduated in the last 35 years. And currently we are taking care of 8,000 children in 11 campuses. So all these children, how do you bring in children who have been wounded? Children who have no hope. Children who do not even think that they are worthy anything. And that is how we say that when we come to MCF, the uniting language is the language of love, which is actually layered in music. Every single child, every single youth in MCF is in a choir. So it is through those choirs that they get identity, that they get to know that I can express myself. They compose songs and they are able, their lives are changed, they're transformed. It's a process whereby they go through.
Beautiful, and that's a lot of impact when you talk about those numbers. How many? 35,000 over the last
35,000.
Incredible. I'm going to keep things moving because there's a panel of, I'm losing count. Anyway, Steve, over to you. Steve, can you share a personal story or moment when you witnessed music education or music in general transform a community or an individual in your case. Anything you want to speak to on that end?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Happy from Cameroon, Central Africa. I'm the co-founder of JTAM Records. Yeah, JTAM Records is a project of rehabilitation through music and art expression. Basically, I co-founded the project in 2018 when I've been wrongly convicted. Yeah, I've been wrongly convicted, so it was a way for us, like during my incarceration, it was a way for us to maneuver in, like, deeply between those four walls, these crazy walls of the four walls. And the only thing you have is the time. So we met this Italian woman who has this brilliant idea of building a recording studio inside the prison, because she went through the court of the prison and there was those guys doing freestyles. At the time, before being in jail, I was always being a music producer as a passion. At that time, I was in jail. I remember I have my friend, my late friend, a street dude. He passed away. He told me there's this young lady, Italian, she's building a recording studio. And since you're a music producer, it would be a fantastic thing if you meet her. And that's how we decided to join our forces together and build the program and the project JTAM Records. And what I have to say, like the first time I entered the recording studio in prison was the end of my prison. Yeah, nice. Because like it wasn't us against the time, like it was our freedom, it was weapons like for us against the system. Yeah. It was a weapon, like a way of learning, talking, expressing our frustration. Yeah. Because between the four walls, that's all you have is you against the time. So founding the recording studio was really the beginning of our freedom. And it was a big impact for us.
Beautiful words, beautiful, very moving. Does anyone want to react to that or bring in another anecdote that might build from what Steve and Damdu have mentioned? Elizabeth.
I just love what you just said, that as soon as you started to hear the music, that was the end of your prison time. I think
yes.
That just sums it all up, that music is just a tonic and something so powerful in its own way. I wanted to answer that question about examples of how music has changed lives. And as I was preparing to be on your panel, I was thinking, what story would I tell? And the story I want to share is of a pair of twins who came to our program, Ghetto Classics. Ghetto Classics teaches, I'll say classical music because that's the language you use. Those are the notes we use. But I always tell the kids, this is your alphabet and you can play any music with it. They joined our project and they're twins, yes, that's what I'm saying. They were child number 7 and 8 in their family of 9. And the first one to join was Frederick and Lamech, let me call him Lamech, and he played the violin. And his twin brother Teddy joined a year later. He at the time played the tuba. He wanted to play the piano, but we didn't have one, so he had to play the tuba. And you know, I could tell you their whole life story, but the first thing is that of the 9 children, Teddy and Lamech were the first to finish high school. Of all those kids, because all the others were not able to, didn't have to, but with the support they get through the music, through what they learn, how they change, their ambition. And today of our kids, Teddy and Lamech, one of them, and I should be showing you photos actually. I have this. Yeah, I have some photos to show of our dance
beautiful.
program there. Teddy and Lamech are Lamech is now studying viola and architecture at Bard College. And he says that he wanted to study architecture because he saw his first big building when he went to perform in the city of Nairobi. He had never seen one before, and he was like, I want to be able to do that. And then also for the he then spent hours and hours learning he had to change to viola because he didn't have a chance with his violin. And he'd spend 4 hours every night in the middle of the night with a tutor from Bard College. And he got in. And his brother, Teddy, is studying piano performance at Birmingham Conservatory. This is from a family that had never finished school, but because of music, because of what music showed them. And the story, to me, doesn't end there. It's because Lamech at Bard College has gone to the president of his university and asked his university to support the children back home. And so he himself has started his own program to support the kids, because he says, I want them to learn music better than I did. Yes. And so for me, it's that whole circle that he has moved forward, but doesn't forget where he's come from, wants to make it better for the people behind him. And it's all because he started to learn music.
Oh, wow.
That was my story that I wanted to share.
Beautiful, and it's really nice to, thank you for sharing these images with us, but the story of, nailing it right down to two individuals, or in your case, Steve, like your lived experience. I mean, it's really very moving to bring this power of music that we're talking about, but down to individual lives and how it affects us community-wise or individually. It's very, very moving to hear. I want to move to Micah and just, first of all, introduce your work with the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, but also want to pose one of the questions. I got to get through these questions. How do we ensure that music education is accessible and sustainable in underserved areas? If you can speak to that and link it to your experience in working.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and it's amazing to be on this panel with just hearing the stories that have been shared so far. I'm just beyond humbled, honestly, by some of the odds at which we are working as people who are trying to create some sort of alternative than what the world seems to be determined to provide, and using music as a way to do that. I so resonated particularly with what you said about the choirs and how everyone sings in a choir, and that just like creates this sense of identity and a sense of agency and a sense of worth and value and platform and all of those things, and that's what undergirds our work as well. With the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, I work with Palestinian and Israeli young people from East and West Jerusalem. And it's both a music program and a dialogue program. And so we have professional facilitators. We meet now for 10 hours a week in 2 rehearsal slots, and each rehearsal starts and ends with music, and in the middle is an hour and a half of facilitated dialogue about everything. Everything is on the table. People bring their realities, which are very hard, and are often directly wielded to have them think that the other person in the room is at fault for what they've had to experience. So if somebody, for example, comes and says, hey, actually, like, I was tear gassed on the way to rehearsal today. That has happened. If somebody says, hey, like, sorry, I was late. There was like a bomb threat on the light rail, and so, like, sorry, I was late today, right? Like, these are things that are regular, unfortunately, occurrences for our kids. And instead of that becoming, therefore, screw you and I'm leaving, it becomes, I need you to understand what my reality is, what I'm experiencing, because I care about you and I care about what you think, and I want to know, like, what you think about this. But, like, not necessarily in a confrontational way, in a curious way, in a way of, like, this is how we can learn about what is actually happening around us, and is how we can have some agency and power to do something about it and use music as a way to do that. And so one of the things, to me, I really wanted actually to answer that first question that you asked about the name of the session, because to me, it's about the act of building those bridges that is the key to ensuring a better future. That, like, there's so much that is designed to sort of divide and conquer right now. Certainly seems to be the global paradigm these days. And music is this profoundly human way of like helping us remember who we are. And in that remembering, we can see that actually a lot of these labels that are applied may not be everything. And in that, we're able to start actually building bridges to ourselves, to each other, and particularly that, I think, particularly in an Israeli-Palestinian context for sure, is I think the only way that we'll actually be able to get to a better future. And so to me, that's where sort of the music plugs in.
What drove you, if I might ask, to get into this work specifically?
So I had studied actually community singing with Isai Barnwell of Sweet Honey in the Rock, who created Community Sings in Washington, D.C., just these events where anyone can just come and she'll just teach songs in multi-part harmony on the spot to whoever walks up off the street, and it's this magical thing. And that, of course, has always been used in service of not just building community, but of course in mobilizing people to push for change in very important and very difficult times. That was sort of one thread, and the other was just that I myself grew up in a very one-sided education when it came to Israel-Palestine stuff. And it wasn't until I was actually in a room with Palestinians and hearing their stories in a context where we weren't like hurling headlines at each other, but it was just people talking about their lives. And these are people whom I had come to trust, who'd come to be my friends. And then they said things that completely like blew up my worldview. But I could hold it because I cared about them. And that led me on a whole path of wanting to do this kind of conflict transformation, and then seeing how music, and specifically singing in groups, created a container in which those conversations could happen better. Those conversations can happen within this sphere of trust, within a sphere of relationship, within a sphere of, at the end of the day, we're not coming here just to like yell at each other and be mad, but at the end of the day, we're gonna go back and we're gonna sing together.
Nice.
And we're gonna have something that we can do about it. So over the last 20 years, sort of weaving those threads together, eventually, here we are now.
Beautiful, and thank you for that. Good to have the context. Ron, I'm not gonna ask a question. I'm gonna say, does anything that you've seen or heard so far here resonate? We'll bring Ron into the equation here.
Well, thank you very much for sharing all your experience. And I 100% sure that each of you and us and you have an experience and a moment where kids or volunteer or team of your part have this story who inspire you, definitely. When I get the invitation for the title of the conference, the first thing that I saw, it was Building Bridge to a Better Future. And I say, what does mean better future? Starting from that point. And also, the most of the time, we see things in one or two perspectives, how we build a bridge to the kids, to the relationship we have with them, and to the community. But I would like to amplify this perspective, not only to the child, but also to organizations, to the public and private policies, because when we are really able to amplify that bridges and create more bridges, that actually get access to more kids and makes a transformation. Because when we hear a beautiful story of a kid able to get into a school, or I can tell in my personal life changing through music because I come from El Sistema, or when I go to a refugees camps in the Middle East or Africa that I've been teaching, or in Greenland. One of the biggest issues that I always have is that I really know what I want to share and I want to give because I know what music can really make. But then this passion, this energy gets stopped always by organizations, by policies, by other situations. So I wanted to bring to say this is so inspiring to have the possibility of give to a child the possibility to be playing and be in a groups, that's for sure. But I would like also to have in mind how we could build bridges also to universities, organizations who understand more what we do.
That's exciting. Yes, yes. No, this is exciting. The concept of, I like the angle that you're building into this conversation around policy, because everybody here is collaborating within their networks and with government, with you name it, academia, with private, public, to make your programs thrive and sing and develop. So does anyone want to, Ron, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No. It's very interesting, because this morning I was talking in the lobby with someone, and I was saying, imagine that we have a river, and a river or a water in a canal. Yes, we have a canal in between two persons, and imagine we are organizations like El Sistema or programs who are using music to empower kids, to give the possibility to know there's a better future for them, or there's something that it can make you dream and be safe. And then in the other side, then there are a group of people in the society who even don't know that we are existing, or probably they are in the other side of the river, and there are people who know there are countries bumping to each other, and they just continue their life, or in the other side there are politicians who are just listen and do whatever they think that it should be. Then this is when it's come really important how our way of teaching in our programs becomes so important, because if we definitely not just teach music, but also teach values, socio-emotional skills, will definitely help to build that bridge to later on to have the next principal of a school, the next politician, the next. So I think what we have in front of us is sound cliche, but it's the future of the kids in our classroom.
Well, you touched on this in our talk yesterday, the concept of modeling for that next generation, and that's what we're also in the practice of doing here. So, does anybody want to respond to that?
I want to add an anecdote.
Please.
I'm a storyteller. And it's also about, I mean, myself and Dondo there, I know we serve communities that are ignored. They're put aside, and no one wants to deal with the big issues that are in that community. I've been doing this work of teaching music and dance in the informal settlements for 17 years, and what I've seen is how a community that has been associated by its identity is crime, and its identity is badness and horribleness. And then through music and dance and the arts, suddenly it slowly starts to change its identity. And so, for instance, where we come from, where our main project is, Korogosho, is now known for music as opposed to crime. The people who have come through and know the place, and if you put in Korogosho, you will see music in there. And so the community's identity changes because of that. And the anecdote I wanted to tell you is we never had water, ever, piped water. People had to walk to the tap and, kilometers and kilometers. And one day, the president's wife was coming to visit our project. And her team, who of course come ahead and make sure there's a red carpet and everything, that the toilets are clean. They're like, where's the water? I'm like, we've never had water. In the 10 years I've been here, we do not have running water. Yeah. I'm like, but the taps are there and the pipes are there. And so her chief of staff calls the head of water in Nairobi and says, I want water here now. And sure enough, the water came.
Yeah.
And in fact, he called me and said, Elizabeth, why didn't you call me and tell me, why did I have to get a call from State House? Right. I'm like, I don't know you, but since then we have had water. And that is now 8 years later. And that is just an example of how music and arts can bring in people who would never care about a community. And that if they really wanted to, they could change things.
Well, you're touching on something there, because I think that idea of policy and building, like literally building these connections and bridges to the less obvious side of, a community is very complex. It has the head of water, or it in your
but because
example.
of music, you then get a service that you wouldn't otherwise have as a community.
Well, and I think we all, as music educators and musicians, deserve to be at these tables that might be less obvious. So it could be meeting with government, it could be meeting with community leaders in different areas where you wouldn't always say, let's bring a musician to the table. But I think it does, interesting creative things happen when we're when creative, community-minded musicians and music educators are at the table. I want to talk a little bit about innovation and innovative approaches in music and music education. And I'm just very intrigued by the evolution of Jail Time Records and how that's come to be. Can you share what excites you about that evolution and the promise for future community development through that, Steve?
Yeah, actually, through the project J-Time Records, we are going through a lot. We are going through like our movie. We've been shooting the movie for almost 5 years now. Okay. We are editing the movie, and we are almost finishing it, the movie. And we have this new project because you all have to know, these days in Central Africa, especially because I don't know about other parts too. There's a huge problem like with the youth and drugs addiction. Okay. Like 90% of the prison population, they are in jail because of minor crimes. Yeah, and mostly it's drug addiction. They don't have IDs, and basically crackheads. And working with the minor section of the prison, I just realized how hard the drugs addiction was touching the new generation. And it's really it's even a movement, it's a culture. Yeah, it's a culture doing drugs, and that's how we have this idea of creating this new project with Ça vient de la rue, like straight from the street, and it's a prevention project. It's a prevention project where we set up a recording studio, mobile recording studio, and we go into the underserved communities, popular places like markets. And we started setting up the recording studio. We blasting music, and it's an open mic session. Open mic session, you have like people, especially young guys, like gathering, grabbing the mic, freestyling, and it's just leading us right now, like of the creation of a new project and a new album that we're gonna release at the end of the year, and with a series of podcasts. So, and it's really impacting into those kids, because now they are finding a new purpose, like even, let's say it's even like a fun way to exist, because all they knew was what, like doing drugs. That's, if you're doing drugs, you cool. You don't do drugs, you don't cool. So we are trying to bring this new opportunity, like to showcase their talents, and most of them are even discovering they can be a musician. They can be like dancer, like, and they exist, they have a value, they're being appreciated by other people.
Do you feel like it's growing? Like we talked earlier about the idea of policy and building it with people in the community. Do you feel like people are, how are people embracing it, and do you feel like it's spreading this concept?
Yeah, like the J-Time concept, like, and even the new project Savien Larue, we have a lot of demands even by the politics, because now we have like, even we are working with the Ministry of the Justice, we have a lot of embassy like calling us like, yeah, they want the same project in others prison. Like we built a recording studio in Burkina Faso. Like, yeah, we have the same project, the prevention one in Ivory Coast. I don't know if you know about Ivory Coast, like Grand Bassam, not Abidjan. We have one the same in Grand Bassam. Next in Nigeria. Next month I'm going to Brazil, Salvador. So it's really growing.
Okay.
Like, cause of, yeah.
Who wants in on this? Go for it.
Go for it. I didn't see you.
It's so amazing when I hear him talking about the innovation that is coming through, and just tailor-making music, tailor-making sound to very specific individuals. And I look at it when we have the Muli Children's Family, when they sing, and all these children, as I said, and youth, they have all these different choirs, and everybody is required to be in at least 1 or 2. There are others who are very ambitious. They're in 3 choirs. They're so ambitious, and they're the ones who, we give them the opportunity to actually compose songs. And it is amazing the sound they're able to produce. And what has happened over time, when we go to the streets, because we still do street outreaches and give food to the street children, the street families, and you find that when they come and then we give them the mic, as you're saying, it's like an open, come and do your own thing. And just that moment where you give a child or a young person a microphone and they sing, you can see just life just happens. They see the possibilities of what they can be. So I resonate with that. And what we have also included as innovation is also bringing in the arts. We have acrobats performance, live acrobats performance on that. And you see, when we're doing that, we're also doing the cultural dances. So the cultural dancing is going on, and the acrobats is going on, and also the drums. There are other, I remember there's a young man who came, the guy was so shy and so little, because in his family, all of them have also Down syndrome, and he's the only one without Down syndrome in the whole family. So when he came to us, he was very naive and very shy, not wanting to really express himself. And once he started getting the drums, he's our best drummist right now. And just through that expression, he's able to sing, he's able to, to drum. So the innovation of having composing, even drum, like notes and, so it all brings that joy of even karate
oh, wow.
into music, and bringing that into a discipline. Now, these children, these young people who have been addicted with drugs, they're so used to taking something that puts them so high. They want opium. They want something that will make them high, but something that there's a song they say that music makes me high.
Yeah.
And it is a substitute to actually drugs.
Okay.
So they have a vent.
Wow.
And that is how creatively we're able to bring in new ways of having meaning to children and youth.
Beautiful.
Through music.
Beautiful, Nantu. Thank you. Micah, can you build off of that, please?
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to the question of, you were talking about policy, and what is the way that we can try to use that sort of personal and community impact to have an even bigger sort of sphere of impact, and the way that you were talking about how because of music, then not only the way that your community sees itself has changed, but the way that other people see it has changed, and the way the government now is providing services that are completely unrelated seemingly to music,
Yes.
but that the community needed because music was able to like get the attention in a way that wasn't like hi, we're a problem, right? And so I wanted to share a story also about the ways in which, in a very challenging, very, very challenging environment politically for us, that we've also tried to use the musical platform we have to have that kind of policy impact. And it was actually on tour. It was on the tour about a year and a half ago, where we were invited to perform on America's Got Talent. And we did that, and that's its own story. Many millions of people saw that, and we thought long and hard about what kind of message we were going to bring. That's its own story. But also on that tour, we were actually invited to perform at the Biden White House. And we turned them down. And we turned them down because it didn't feel like just sort of performing music at the White House while the White House was directly sponsoring so much of the violence in a very one-sided way, like did not feel like something that I could ask Palestinians to do, for example. However, what we did not do is then say, and screw you. We went and had a policy meeting with them. So we actually were like, hey, we're not actually comfortable right now just sort of being a PR thing for you guys, but we have stories to tell. That's and right. Now that we have your attention, we want to have a policy meeting. And so we did. And so we met with 6 of the National Security Council, like senior staff.
Wow.
And we created a list of policy points that each of the singers grouped into which policy point they felt most strongly about, decided what story they wanted to tell from their own lives about why X and such American foreign policy needed to change, and had that audience. And we had an hour-long meeting with them. No one was checking their phones. Everybody was taking notes. It was supposed to be a half-hour meeting, and it ended up being an hour and then 15 minutes meeting.
Okay.
Because you could tell that these were people who had actually been trying from the inside to actually change things, but needed somebody to give them something to work with, who was willing both to meet with them, but also to help them challenge what people were being told was sort of an impossible situation. And at the end, then we sang a song.
Nice.
And then we sang, the song that we sang is called A Different Way, and it was a song that our singers, 4 of our young women, actually wrote after October 7th, directly drawing on their personal experience. So you're talking about the power of like the songwriting and the power of how this helps people sort of see outside of their current situation. And that's the song then that we sang after this policy meeting. And that, I think, is one of the most challenging and powerful things that we have been able to do if you're talking about like, okay, so like what's the so what, right? So
I want to, I love exactly what you said, because for us in our organization, visibility makes stage where visibility make that spotlight where then you can make change. The other things that will really help you us, research, people who write about you, people who investigate, people who see from another perspective and show your work. And another important visibility is innovation that we were talking, and how we use also technologies to use channels to other people talk of the social impact that you are doing. And there, when then it's visible, when we give this access of visibility, then we are in the right state to negotiate.
Yes.
And we are in the right state to present new policies, or, okay, do you see what we do? And do you know this can be 3 times much more if the support is completely different.
Yeah.
So there, I think we all, I think, agree with that. I love it when you said that you were in Got Talent and all the stories you mentioned, because these stories is what we want to tell.
Yeah.
And when we want to tell that stories, we need space to do that. We need visibility. We need a moment to be access to that.
Well,
So,
with this kind of work, you do get the spotlight and you do get the microphone. And when you do, I think the story that Micah brought to the discussion is really empowering, because you could have just taken the PR thing and done it easy. But I like the fact that you've been in this work for as long as you have, and that comes with time and maturity to be able to deliver that kind of message. So when we talk about implementing change and bringing it, it's also our seasoned, you know what I mean? They're like, you're all doing this kind of work from so many different angles, and I just really admire that approach to bring the change, because it can come. Ron, you want to follow up?
I have a question also for the panel that I would like to share.
Go ahead.
I came to a class, I think it was last year, yes, I mean 6 months ago. I was in the class, and I came to the class, and a young boy came to me. I didn't know him. It was my first day's class. I always make a kind of like a countdown until the class put music, and he came to me and asked me, Ron, what side are you? And I say, sorry? I was like, and I was thinking it was my Swedish, or like, and I repeat again, can you repeat again? And then he say, yes, what side are you? Are you Palestinians side or Israel? And my face at that moment, I told him, listen, I'm the side of peace, I'm the side of respect each other, and the side of be able to support each other, and that's what I do music, because I really want this society to be respectful, and I'm in the side where the people don't kill, and in that size where it's not killing, where the people can really see a world that it doesn't matter in what you believe, but this should not damage anyone else. Yeah. And I came home with that question, and I put it even bigger in my mind, thinking how we build that's also bridge to the broken, angered heart, because that answer also from it was like, yes, but you have to pick a side because my grandparents had been killed. So when I come to my home, I says, how I build this bridge to a broken heart, to a broken soul, to it is something that it keeps still in my mind thinking all the time. And I know we are living every day to make our better, and you said yesterday in the panel something that was so beautiful. I take in my mind, you said, we also need to know our limitations, and someone we need to help find a person who have the knowledge to take. We cannot do everything. But how you go home and keep this mind thinking. So, and just to keep that question to you, I remember a quote I read in a book that was from an Afghan's poetry, Ramin. It says, today I was clever and I wanted to change the world, but yesterday I was clever and I wanted to change the world, and today I have more knowledge and I want to change myself. And I have that in my mind, but I'm still fighting in my thoughts how you deal with building bridge to a broken soul.
Do you want to build on that?
Yes. because we were on another panel yesterday, and I, you know, I said, you know, it's not always happy endings. It's not always, you know, it doesn't work sometimes, and the person you're trying to help actually burns the bridge, you know, and you know, invest in them, and you give everything you can, but at the end of the day, perhaps what has happened to them is just so much that you can't handle it, and they don't know how to come, and music isn't the panacea that you thought it would be, and how do you deal with it? And as he was talking, again, I remembered this one boy, really gifted saxophonist, really gifted. And his brother was in a gang, and he was the first child who we ever had who ended up being stabbed because of some other thing. And then anyway, he decided to go back to the world of being a gangster. And I remember sitting with him and pleading and trying to bribe him into staying in our program, but he wanted the fast money. And I gave up. And 2 years later, he's back now. I mean, he even called me while I was here, because now he's like, Elizabeth, I just want to play my saxophone again. But because his crimes in those 2 years are just too big for us to take him back. My own team, my own kids are like, we can't have him back. But it breaks my heart, because I'm like, there must be a solution for you somehow. And to his point, there's another program in our area that does work with criminals. And you know, one of my best workers in my program has been in jail. I'd never asked him what he did, but he went to jail, and so he has paid his whatever, his price. But now this young boy hasn't, but he has hurt people, but he wants his music. He's desperate to come back, and one of my other students is working with him secretly, and I pretend I don't know. But, you know, how do you build that bridge? How do you fix something so big? I don't have the answer to that.
Sure.
But, you know, I found him secretly playing the saxophone with somebody else there.
That's beautiful.
And I was like, I didn't see that, and I walked away.
I think it is partly in those woods. The answer is that you're planting these seeds, and it's not a linear path. So. Yeah. 3 years later, something might pop, and you know, you're making this impact that we're making on stage here today. We don't know that one conversation, that one piece of music that's gonna maybe, you know, have that impact. So it all matters, is my point.
And Elizabeth, be there as you do.
There it is.
That's,
even if it's secretly be there as you do. Yes, exactly. Be there. Don't do. Yes. Please.
Yeah, maybe just to. There's something that we say in Muli Children's Family. It's very hard, but we take it as it is. We never give up on anyone.
There you go.
We've had children who, maybe because we stay with them, we live with them, so it's a family. We've had children who have run away 5 times. They go sniff their glue there, do their thing, come back 5 times. There's one who counted up to 10 times.
Okay.
And he was a hardcore street boy. And he was so good in playing his guitar. And he will go, run away, do his thing, come back, ask for forgiveness, be forgiven. You know, it almost became like a routine. I can always be brought back. That's okay. But then he's currently, actually, right now, he has begun his own children's home.
Wow.
That takes care of over 250 street boys.
There you go.
So the same thing that he was taught, how to forgive and not to give up.
Yeah.
Sometimes they look like they are wounded beyond, but in MCF, not only the music, but it comes with the love of God, because we can offer music, we can offer poetry, we can offer anything else, but then the underlying thing is we don't don't give up. And we just teach them the love of Christ, because the love of Christ, it never gives up on anyone, none of us. And that is why we also go to, and that young man now, he's teaching, he's going to the streets and bringing the ones, and he's able to be patient.
Beautiful.
So patience is one thing that helps us, and also bringing in the psychological aspect. As you say, we're not able to do it, all of us, right?
Yes.
So there are those ones who are in our place whereby they deal with the psychological point of view, the social, economical, the social aspect, the health aspect, the emotional healing. Yeah. It is intertwined in all this.
That's powerful. We're getting down to our last few minutes here, and I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions from our wonderful audience here. But the last question I would have for you is a weird one. Someone was talking about it, actually, is the idea of sometimes these ideas and these concepts don't always stick, right? We have setbacks in our work. And I want to poke around there and just see if you might think of like one of your finest flops. You know what I mean? Because I think there's something to learn in that if you share that with our audience, with us here. A setback that you might have just, and what did you learn from it? If anyone wants, if that resonates with anybody. Your work, I just find your work is so unique and important. It's good to learn from these kind of setbacks. So does anyone want to take that?
There are two things. I mean, there are two levels on which I can sort of answer that question. And one, obviously, is more serious, of just like working in this kind of context where all of our singers are basically being told by their communities every week not to come back. Right? And they have to make a choice every week to decide, like, actually, even if I'm going to be bullied at school, or even if my uncle is going to threaten me, or even if my society is going to ostracize me or whatever, like, this is truth, right? So that's hard, and it's a pretty overwhelming force. And, like, we don't always win, right? Like, sometimes there are, people in the family who just say, like, nope, you're done. Right, and no amount of sort of negotiating necessarily works, and sometimes the events of the world are so extreme, right? Like after October 7th, one of our Israeli alumni who'd been with us for a long time, like posted on social media being like, I knew all Arabs were terrorists. This choir I was in was all a lie, right? So like that happens, right? Yeah, but we continue going, and more people, like there's no perfection in this work. For sure. Yeah. But we're moving and we're sort of continuing to do our thing. That's sort of on a more serious level, right? Like we don't have sort of the cure to everything. But on a sort of bit of a lighter-hearted and more self-deprecating note, I think for me, that also has more to do with the music. I'm just remembering a spectacular failure of one of my musical arrangements where I had created a mashup, basically, of a gospel song, Sing Till the Power of the Lord Come Down, and I mashed it up sort of in Yisai Barnwell's like style, and I layered it with a Hebrew song that was on theme and an Arabic song that was on theme, and we brought it on our first tour, and it was going to be this amazing thing, and the song, of course, in that kind of a gospel style has this sort of like offbeat clap, like sing till the power of the Lord come down, dun, dun, dun. But in Arabic music, you would never, ever, ever, ever clap on the offbeat. It makes no sense. And so no matter what I did, like there was just I was just going fundamentally against the grain of the musical identity and culture of half of the kids in the group. And so no matter what we did, like beat one just always shifted. And so it was just this complete face plant.
Sounds amazing to me, actually. But
it was great, except then like half of the group was starting on beat one and half of the group was starting on beat two.
And that's fine. That's where
it was an interesting experience.
That's where the magic
But anyway,
happens.
it was a humbling moment, right? Because we think about, like music is this like universal language, blah, blah, blah. But like, even just on the musical level alone,
Finding one.
there are so many opportunities for us to do this wrong.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, that again is just, extremely humbling to me. It's one of many moments like that of learning what are sort of the boundaries, but it's just one thing that gives me even more respect and admiration for all of the work that all of you are doing in terms of just like, with all of those obstacles, both the social obstacles and the musical obstacles and the economic obstacles and the addiction and the money and the politics and all of
There's
it,
a lot
like
of
we're
barriers.
still doing something that really matters.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank you.
hats off to everybody.
Anyone else? Does that resonate? That was beautiful.
Said, never give up, and I think be there for them.
Yeah.
I read research about a Finnish psychologist. I don't remember the name now, but she is in the Karolinska organization in Sweden. And one of the said that she was literally said is that one of the ways of preventing suicide and is was just feel part of a group. Be part in a group, even if you are not making a therapy, just be part. So the importance be with them, and the importance be there for them. Important that you are, or your class is the safety in place. So I always say to my students, I love you very much, and I teach a group of kids, but I take care of each individual. I think that's something that I always have in mind.
To tell your students you love them, you just kind of rocked my world. I don't think I've ever done that. I mean, not like in those words. Is that a thing? Can we do that? Damn.
Yeah, just don't
I'm
be weird
good.
about
I
it.
think the session
tell
has
them.
ended.
I love
that's
what
incredible.
you do. I tell them. I
I'm-
love exactly in the way that you do.
I'm going back to the school tonight.
Exactly.
There you go.
That's
There you go.
what I want
There
to
you go.
say.
Jazz snap.
You got my point. That's exactly what I say.
Thank you.
The proud. It's exactly, the kids need to feel the sense of progress,
Yeah.
but how you're also building the bridge in a relationship with them. And the relationship with the kids, with the parents, with the community, is come when you trust them, you learn from them, and you come in the level that you are just exactly a person that is there for them and to be a new person. So I always learning from each of my students because they love that they
That's
can bring to
beautiful.
us.
Can I say something
yes,
really
please,
quick?
please.
Just this boy whose picture is there, and
Yeah.
because of what you've just said, I wanted to go back because he came into our program about 10 years ago, and he's an orphan brought up by a grandparent, and I remember him because he came in feeling unwanted. His shoulders were bent. He wouldn't look you in the eye. And over the years, as he played, his head came up, his shoulders came, and now he answers, he talks back at me, and he has his own YouTube channel, and he's like, I'm like, are you the same kid?
He
and
found his voice.
He found his place. He found where he belonged, who he was, and so now he's a big leader in our program. But 10 years ago, you'd never have thought that, and it's that thing. I love what's in you,
Exactly.
what's in you, what you are somebody.
Yeah. How often do we see that? And
How
that's the
important
magic.
you are.
Yeah.
That's
Not to change this slide, but can we go back to the original slide with all of our photographs, please? Let's go, because I want to, there we are. Let's go just really quickly. We don't have time for questions, unfortunately, but we'll be out in the lobby. We can chat after. Just if you could give your website or information about where people can learn more about your work. Let's start with Elizabeth.
Our best work is on Instagram.
Go.
Yep,
Do
Ghetto
it.
Classics KE.
Say it again.
Ghetto Classics KE for
Thank
Kenya.
you.
Thank you.
Over to you, Steve.
Yeah,
And thank you.
Instagram, Jailtime Records. Yeah.
Jailtime Records on Instagram.
Yeah.
Find them and connect. Please, Micah.
JerusalemYouthChorus.org. Everything is there.
okay.
Yep.
Website. Thank you.
And MCF or MuliChildren'sFamily.org.
Okay.
dreamorchestra.sc in the website, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. and LinkedIn.
Please join me in thanking our incredible panel here, and thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and you could go to communitymusic.org to learn more about Community Music Schools of Toronto.
There it is.
Take care, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Let's take a picture, no?
Oh,